All right, so before we start graphing polar curves, I wanted to make sure that you're comfortable with graphing polar coordinates. Okay, so how this video is going to work is I have a bunch of coordinates on the board, and we're just going to go through them one by one and get them graphed on this polar axis. So our first set of coordinates here, 2, 0. Well, before we actually even graph that, we need to understand what r and theta are, right? We need to make sure we know that. Well, firstly, r, okay, that's just the distance from the origin, and theta, that's going to be the angle that you make with the polar axis, okay? So first we got that 2, 0. Now, we're not making any angle with the polar axis, so that means we're on it, and we're 2 away from the origin. So that means we're going to be here, 1, 2, there's our point. All right, next we have 0, pi over 2. All right, well, here you can already see we have a 0 for the radius. That means we're just going to be right on the origin, right? We're not being displaced at all. So that point is going to be right here. Next we have 4, pi over 2. All right, and well, now we are in that pi over 2 direction, right? So we're going to be going somewhere up, and we have a radius of 4, okay? So that means you can kind of see, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, plot your point, and then usually you just draw a line to it. All right. Then we have 1, 3 pi over 2. All right, so where is the angle 3 pi over 2? Well, that's going to be 270 degrees, right? So that's in this direction. We're going 1 in that direction. Okay, so we're going 1 here, draw your point, and then draw your line. So next we have -1, 3 pi over 2. All right, and what you'll notice here is that this is the exact same point as this one, except we have a negative now. So what does that mean for us? Well, all that means is that we're going to be going in the opposite direction. Okay, so we'll start out from the origin, and 3 pi over 2 is going down this way, so all we're going to do is we're going to go up 1. And there's your point. All right, next we have 6, pi over 7, and this is more of like a multiple choice question. So you'll be given 4 different graphs, and you'll be asked to identify which one is 6, pi over 7, something like that. Because pi over 7 isn't an angle that we normally work with. So all you really have to do to kind of understand this is compare it to an angle that you do know, all right? So let's say we compare it to pi over 6, right? Because pi over 6 is very close to pi over 7. So pi over 6 is going to look something like this, all right? So pi over 7 will be just 1 lower than that, right? It'll be something like this. All right, and we're just going to be going 6 in that direction. So count it off: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we put our point there, and we draw our line. All right, and that's 6, pi over 7, right? And if you see anything within that area, okay, that's the answer. And like I said, it's more of a multiple choice question, but it does happen. All right, next we have -3, pi over 4, and okay, all that means is that we're going in the opposite direction of pi over 4. So pi over 4 would be 45 degrees. Well, now we're just going to be going in the opposite direction, 3, which is 225 degrees. So we'll count it off: 1, 2, 3, and we will draw our line to the point right here. So lastly, we have -2, 3 pi over 7. Now, this is another kind of multiple choice type question. Okay, 3 pi over 7, that's pretty close to 3 pi over 6, right? And 3 pi over 6 happens to be pi over 2. So we know that 3 pi over 7, that direction is fairly close to this pi over 2 line right here. Is it going to be more than that or less? Well, since we have a higher denominator here, we know that's going to be less. So it's going to be somewhere around this direction right here. All right, well, since we're going 2 in the opposite direction, that just means we can draw another line here. All right, so you see that, and now we just go 2 in that direction, right? Going 2 in that opposite direction. Draw our line, and there's our point. okay? So that's basically it for this video, okay? It's not really anything too hard. I mean, the only things that you might see is an angle that you're not super familiar with, or you're gonna see your radius as a negative number, which means you're just going in the opposite direction. All right, so that is going to do it for this video.
So if this video helped you, make sure you leave a like and subscribe by clicking my icon in the top left. You could also view the playlist for parametric and polar and the next video in this series. See you soon.